Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Do Epic Shit Today podcast. I am Hannah. I am here with Emily. Hello, Emily.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Of course, long time coming. I'm super stoked that you're here. I'm going to do a quick background because you're a very impressive human, and I would like to make sure I get this very clear and crystal and beautiful and wrapped up in a bow. So, joining me today is Emily Currence, an athletic consultant and mental skills coach from the Elevate team. Emily is deeply committed to advocating for mental health awareness within the athletic community. And as a former dual sport, that's a tongue twister. As a former dual sport collegiate athlete, Emily recognizes a significant yet overlooked need for mental health support in sports. So, currently, you are a mental health therapist and high school basketball coach in North Carolina, and you bring a wealth of experience from your work with athletes, coaches, veterans, and teachers. Emily, yourself, has also spoken to collegiate sports teams on key topics such as self-care, life balance, burnout, and gratitude, and empowering athletes to prioritize their mental and emotional well-being. And then I'll tell you the credentials because it's holy Moses. So credentials. Emily holds a BS in psychology from Wheeling Jesuit University and an MS in clinical rehabilitation and mental health counseling from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. You're also a licensed clinical mental health counselor, certified rehabilitation counselor, and you specialize in the mind-body connection in your work as a certified brain spotting specialist in North Carolina. Whoo! That is awesome. I feel like if there was like a mic drop gif, I would insert that here. That is amazing. Of course. I that is so cool. And it's so great. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you here and the audience so that you're aware, my reaching out to Emily and the Elevate team was to talk about the mental health in athletics and talk about just things that aren't brought to the table in regards to navigating your mental health and what tools we can use and just bring up the topic as a whole and getting into the granular, juicy, yummy bits of this topic. So, okay. Is there anything that I missed before I continue?
No, you're doing great. Keep going.
Cool. All right. Sweet. Thank you. Love the pep.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm going to go into the background because I think as a dual collegiate athlete, which was such a tongue twister, you've definitely got experience in collegiate athletics and college athletics as a whole. So when did you notice the lack of conversation around mental health in athletics?
You know, it started when I was in childhood, actually. So even before I got to college, I don't think I had the language for it, and I was aware that I was seeing this missing piece. But when I was 14 years old, so I was a freshman in high school, my teammate passed away in a car accident, tragically. And I was feeling a lot of emotions about what was occurring. And I didn't have a place to go to talk about them. And I didn't have people around me that were processing it in a healthy way or creating a space to talk about the mental impacts of this grief. And I just remember when I was young thinking, I believe there's more that could be done in this situation, but I don't exactly know what that is at that young of an age. I really didn't know, but I knew there was something missing. I think that's when the seed was planted, I would say. Mm-hmm. And then, finished my high school career, got a college scholarship, went to college, studied psychology and started to learn a little bit more about the language and mental health. And I was not planning to become a therapist or be in the mental health field. I was planning to be a physical therapist. I'd had a lot of injuries, and physical therapy in my life was life-changing. I really loved my therapist and how they helped me rehab to play the sport again. But I knew there was this mental component to it, so I studied psychology and took all the prereqs to go to physical therapy school. And then when I was a junior in college, I actually got in a very bad car accident. And in that moment, there was a lot of this wording and language around what I experienced when I was 14, when I lost my teammate to a car accident. And God really just changed my trajectory and was like, you're going to go be a mental health therapist and help this community in mental health with this athletic piece. And I was like, what? I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go the physical therapy route because that's what I prepped for and that's what I have all my classes in. But I made the switch and I decided to pursue mental health, focusing on I want to help the younger version of me one day who doesn't know how to talk about their feelings and manage everything that's going on and create a space for that. And so that is what led me to go on to be a mental health therapist and focus on the athlete population.
Yeah. I have to
Mm-hmm.
ask, what were the two sports that you were a dual athlete in?
I played basketball all 4 years. Yep, basketball.
That a girl.
That's like my main sport for sure. But I also played golf.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
So,
asking this before, but I wanted the audience to like, this is two folks,
yeah.
two sports in college. So I love how you talked about, this very like these not too negative experience kind of bookending this realization of taking that turn from physical to mental therapy. What did that feel like? Because I think we all get those intuition or kind of those gut feelings of like, something's, I'm supposed to be doing mental therapy, like mental health, like therapy. And like, can you talk to me about what that felt like in your body to recognize like, hey, I need to switch paths here. Do you remember?
Yeah. I'm a very body centered, like I use my gut and intuition. I have a very strong view on the mind body connection and how they are just so powerful. Like we feel our anxiety in our body a lot of times before we can mentally say, oh, I'm anxious. Right. And I just remember this feeling of I need to switch and do this, even though that's the harder choice. And I think that's going to be a more difficult road. It was just this intuition path that God really put me on of this is what you're going to do
Yeah.
and this is how you're going to do it. And it was pretty scary. I'm not going to lie, but it was just one of those feelings where I needed to follow through with it. I just knew. I don't really know much more than that, but just in my gut, I knew that's what was next.
I got you. I'm very much a gut person as well. So one of the things I called out when we first started is that you're an athletic consultant and mental skills coach as pillars of your profession, if that's saying it correctly. So for those
Yeah.
who aren't familiar with what you do, how would you describe what you do?
So similar to any consulting, it's giving advice, giving coaching, helping people see the bigger issue or recognize different holes in their setup and how to improve, whether it's a business consulting, right? Or marketing consulting or educational consulting. Like you're coming in with expertise to help the system. And so athletic consulting is more so I'm focused on athletes and the athletic side of it. So sometimes it is the team building feature. Sometimes it's how the coach is taking care of themselves, how players are taking care of themselves, how to get to the next level and kind of elevate your game and your performance. And then the mental skills side is there are just certain tools that you can utilize to improve and take care of yourself in a just healthier way. So that way you can be the best version of yourself. So athletic consultant, mental skills just kind of goes along with I'm helping the team, I'm helping the coaches with different skill sets, tools to improve, but it's more of a kind of consulting role rather than a therapist role.
I gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Cause I think as well, cause I'm looking at my questions and I slipped that one in there. Cause I'm trying to think of it as someone who doesn't, there's so much to mental health, right? Cause I think it's such a broad topic, but you're very specialized in the athletics of mental health. And so that
Yeah.
to me, the mental health and athletics is such an important topic. And so you have such a breadth of knowledge in that space. And so
I think one thing to add to that, athletes want someone who understands the athletic side when it comes to mental health. That is one of the barriers to getting help on the mental health side is athletes have shared, no, I want someone who knows what this is like, who has experienced this, who I can relate to, who when I say I have a really busy week, they understand I have a very busy week. My whole schedule is blocked out with travel, practice, film, school. So part of it is why it became a niche is because there's a need for it, because athletes and coaches want people that understand and can relate to them on that level.
and one of the things that you talk about and stood out to me in your bio and something we talked about in the call we had previously was that you're committed to advocating for mental health awareness in the athletic community. That was huge because one of the reasons why I started the podcast that I have today is to get people out of a funk, to share inspiring stories, and to also talk about topics that people don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about, which is mental health.
Yeah.
And so can you talk about what being a mental health advocate means to you when you say that?
I think, first off, it's helping people see that it's a thing. I think that's like the first thing, like spreading awareness. Hey, athletes are not these like superhuman people. We are humans and we have a human experience and we have issues just like everyone else. So part of it is raising awareness and helping people recognize like, hey, you're not alone. This is an experience that other people have. And just because you're an athlete, you don't have to be put on this level of like, I can't experience that. So first off, it's spreading awareness. It's helping coaches see like, hey, if your player's experiencing some anxiety about this, here are some things to do. It's helping coaches see how their anxiety is impacting the team and their mental health is kind of filtering into the team and how they can care better for themselves. So raising awareness, helping people have tools and normalize that it's okay. And vulnerability is a really good thing. And that's what's going to help.
I
I
like
think,
that.
yeah, I think vulnerability is hard as an athlete. You know what? I think vulnerability is hard as just a human,
That's
if
true.
I'm being honest. But I think from my experience specifically, we are taught when we are doing scouting or we're trying to get the scholarship, we're taught to hone in on the other person's vulnerable spots, like within a game. And so we're almost trained to not have vulnerability. And I think that is a big issue. So let's just say in college, I mean, we had pages upon pages of scouting reports on the team that we're going to play. And you knew every detail about this person's game and it almost turned into like you knew a lot about their life. And it was like, hey, if you attack them going this way on their shoulder, they have like a slow step. So hone in on that weak spot of theirs. And so then in my mind as an athlete, I'm like, okay, so I don't want to have any weak spots because that's what they're going to attack. And even though that is meant as the game itself and as the sport, our brains generalize that to life outside of the sport. And it's okay, well, let's not show a weakness or a vulnerability somewhere because someone may attack that. And that makes vulnerability even harder, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because I remember the scouting reports as well. Like it was our homework. It might as well have been an assignment to know as much as the person you were going to be guarding, from their favorite side to drive, their shooting, their turnaround jumper, all their movements. But then also there were notes like they get in their head. If you get in their head, like you almost want to, which is, competitive nature, but by saying like get in their head, it almost takes it from a physical game to even, I mean, obviously sports are mental, but even more to a mental vulnerability as well. I've never put that together. That is brilliant.
In what I've seen and in what I've experienced, that I think keeps a lot of people from sharing vulnerably. Or like if they have 3 fouls or 4 fouls, like attack, drive to the basket, because they're in their head that they don't want to foul. Like, we are attacking the vulnerable spots.
Ooh, I
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think before I go even more into some of the mental health questions, I want to provide and maybe paint a picture of just how, for a lack of a better word, gnarly mental health in athletes is. In high school, college, professional sports, how large do you see this lack of communication affecting our athletes? Like, how many people are affected by this, do you think?
If you look at the research for high school or college or professional, you're going to get a different number, like a percentage wise, as to how many people are affected by mental health. But what I would say is it is an issue. It's very prevalent. I think there are a lot of the professional athletes that are speaking out about it now and raising awareness more so than when I was playing. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's helping people see, oh, this is an experience that I can talk about. And this is something that is occurring in our community. I've seen numbers at 20% of athletes are experiencing this. I've seen numbers up to 50% of athletes are experiencing this. And so it's a wide range in the just community as a whole outside of athletics. But if you just look at the population as a whole, the number that's usually thrown out there is 20 to 25% of people are experiencing some type of mental health issue. And so I think when we look at it from the athletic perspective, you know, athletes are lining up as well with the population statistics that we have. And I think that's more of the news. It's like, hey, athletes are also experiencing this rather than this many athletes are experiencing this. Because I think, unfortunately, it has been viewed in the past that athletes don't experience it. And so it's just highlighting, hey, athletes are experiencing this.
Yeah, and I think it's so important as someone who has experienced a lot. Like, I've been very open about my anxiety and kind of my experience in college. While there were really great moments, there were also times where I was just very much suffering and in my own world because I didn't recognize or know that this was a common thing or not as uncommon as just me. And so I remember just sitting and just like trying to navigate anxiety, depression by myself on a college sport team where you're moving at 5,000 miles an hour and just being like trying to hang on for dear life. And so I think just like you mentioned, like just talking about it is something, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and I can't speak for your experience, but I think there is fear as an athlete to let people know you're not okay because it's going to impact your scholarship or your playing time. You don't, it's a very vulnerable position to walk in and tell your coach or your teammates what's going on, especially if you're competing with your teammate for the same position. Yeah. Like it feels like there's so much shame around it that then we isolate and hide, and it makes it harder for us. That's what I have seen a lot of athletes, like, I don't want to say anything because I'm worried about these certain things coming up that may be impacted if I open up about this. And I think that's an area for us to grow in.
Mm-hmm. I've never thought about that. For me, it was a lack of not just purely surviving. Like, I'm just going to get through my day. I'm going to count my practices down on my hand. I'm going to look at my season as a number. Like, it was, let me metrify this to just like tally. It was pure survival. And
wow.
I didn't recognize that, like, and it wasn't, I didn't feel comfortable with my coaches. It was just, this is what it is. We're not even going to take the effort to say anything. We're just going to buckle down and we're going to survive. And this is what we're going to do. So I did the whole opposite of just, here's my armor. It's 15 feet thick, but I didn't even think about like what the ramifications or the potential impact of even talking to your coaches about that could be.
Yeah, it sounds like for you, like that wasn't even an option
No,
in your brain.
no,
It was like, nah, I'm just going to do this on my own.
pretty much. And I remember, not to get into the personal, because hopefully someone can resonate with this. I don't know, but
Mm.
I actually didn't bring it up to my coaches. Someone had, I don't want to say snitch, but someone had told them without asking me if they could tell. And it
Mm.
wasn't, I wasn't self-harming. It wasn't where I was a threat to myself or none of that. It was
Mm-hmm.
just me trying to navigate this, and then someone taking the power away from me to actually say it how I wanted to say it, which made me even
Mm.
close in more.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Hopefully there's better practices or things in place now where you're not like outing each other. But yeah, that didn't help.
Well, I'm sure you saying that right now, if someone's listening, they now know how to handle that better.
Yeah. I hope
So
so. I
I
hope
think
so.
you sharing and being vulnerable with that is going to help a lot more people.
Thank you.
Um, you're welcome.
So just to cut to the skinny, why do you think athletes suffer or struggle with mental health? You know, mental health being depression, anxiety, stress.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Question.
I will share a few. Um, I think I think there is a lot of pressure that we take on ourselves to perform and to be the best. And that pressure can really weigh us down and bring on a lot of stress, anxiety, depression, especially if we're not performing well. That can really impact. I think a deeper root of that is what our identity is in. If our identity is in what we do and in what we are producing as an athlete, and then we're not producing, that can take a big toll on us mentally. I think another thought that goes along with that, with social media now, with NIL deals, with the changes that are occurring within the athletic community, there are more of this, there's more of a spotlight on you and more external pressure than there was even when I was an athlete in college. It's different than when I was there.
Same.
I think that adds a lot of stress to a very like young person. Our mental, like statistically, 75% of our mental health issues surface between the ages of 14 and 24. And those are prime. I mean, you are going through adolescence, trying to play travel ball, get a scholarship so you can go to school. And then you're in college and these things are coming up in those years. And that's a hard place to be in, just age wise. So I think, outside external pressures, where our identity is. And then as athletes, we are pushing our bodies at a different level and we have injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a toll on us mentally. When we are physically hurt, we are also mentally hurt and dealing with that. And so I see a lot of injury specific anxiety or depression coming up. Again, kind of goes back to that root. If our identity and we feel like our sole purpose in life is for this sport and what we're doing, and then we have to sit on the bench and we can't do it, that can be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Also, our body can be used to working out and having these endorphins and this cortisol more balanced because we're exercising and now we're hurt, and that takes a toll on us as well. Then I also think we're very bad with boundaries and resting, and our bodies can't go 100% 7 days a week. They just can't.
No.
And that takes a toll on us mentally if we push and we don't know how to set healthy boundaries and rest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also think about too as well, all of the things you mentioned are so crucial to understand. And I think also you're so young. Like when all of this happens, you're so young. Like what 14-year-old is going to be like, well, these 5 things are going to happen to me mentally. And here, like what, how is that happening? It's not. So that was one of the things that you mentioned just now that stood out to me is you're so not little, but you're so young and you're trying to figure out life in itself.
And we don't have the, I mean, at least I didn't have the language to explain what was going on. That's a big thing that I teach is just helping people learn words to describe how they're feeling. It was like, I'm fine, or I'm tired. Like, that's all I could really say because I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
I'm stressed out. Like, that's really all that came out, but I didn't know how to explain what was going on inside.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think as the United States as an example, we can use the United
Yeah.
States. I'm not sure how it is in other countries. I feel like since when I was a kid, finding sports for fun and movement, it was after school care, that it's become way more intense. Like it starts even earlier where there's travel ball at the age of 7. Like it's just been so amplified at such a young age. Have you seen, since you've been in the industry, have you seen kind of an uptick in just the starting age and how that has had an impact on young athletes going into college or professional, like starting so early?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have started to specialize in one sport at a younger age, thinking that's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I did a talk with a former NFL coach. We spoke to a group of parents and we shared with them, hey, these NFL players that are really successful played multiple sports. They weren't like a one sport athlete and the benefits of playing multiple sports. And a lot of parents have no idea. So part of it is parents, from what I've seen, parents think we have to specialize in one sport and we have to just focus on the one and help our kid get noticed. But that's more harmful to our bodies because then we're consistently doing the same movements.
Yeah.
Whereas, doing another sport for a season can be really good for our body and also mentally because we can almost relax while we're doing the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think some of it is just a lack of awareness that multiple sports is actually better and is going to help you further along. I've heard of people getting recruited at younger ages than they used to and getting letters, like of colleges reaching out to them at way younger than what they used to when we were getting recruited.
Is that allowed? Is that legal?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I think you can send a letter at like any age.
Oh, okay. It's just
Like
the
it's not like
offer. The offer
yeah,
has to
yeah,
be
not
okay,
that
okay.
yeah. I don't know what age the offer, like what's the rule NCAA with like the offer. But I mean, people send letters at young ages. People play AAU a lot younger than when we played, and are traveling around at way younger ages than we used to. I think there is a pressure that comes from that. That's just different,
Mm-hmm.
and that adds some more stress.
So it kind of just popped into my mind, this question, and if you let me know your thoughts. So you know the quote, "Pressure is a privilege."
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that? So I'm
Yeah.
curious from your perspective, because I do believe that certain pressures are a privilege, right? Like there are certain pressures in a job where you're having a growth opportunity, or there's some things where pressure is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being a little bit nervous on your first game, or navigating being recruited, or even navigating a professional career, do you have, like, what are your thoughts on the balancing act of pressure as a privilege, but also be mindful of the pressure you're putting on yourself?
Yeah. So they've done studies on like top performance based on the pressure that has been placed on you. And if there's way too much pressure, you're down here. Like you're not going to be able to perform if the pressure's so high. If you have no pressure or no stress, you're also not going to be able to perform. You have to have kind of this healthy amount where there's some pressure to perform, but it's not like overwhelming where your body can't produce. With how we are as athletes, like in our sport, there we perform better when our muscles are more relaxed and we have a healthy amount of cortisol running through our system. Like there needs to be some cortisol running through your system to be able to play your sport, right? But I think what's happening is we are hyping up so many things to a different level that there's so much cortisol running through, and then we aren't able to think straight or shoot or make decisions or call the right plays, that the pressure is too much and it's impacting us. So I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you did. I think there's definitely a balance for sure. No,
yeah. There's a middle ground. There's a healthy standard to put on ourselves.
Yeah.
To have some pressure, but I think it's gone a little too far on the other end of the scale.
And I've also noticed this as well, that as athletes, at least in the sport that I played, your performance is hold to a comparison, right? Like, so I had 16 shots this game. Can I get to 20? Or can I outscore this person? And I wanted to chat with you about how in some sports, like, swimming, tennis, etc. aside, those are more individual and I know there's pressure there. But in group sports, it's also quite difficult to navigate that stress on performance as well, because it's not just up to you. It's not just your level of play is going to win the game. There's a lot of other factors. And have you found that when you have, I don't want to say less control over the outcome, it also can create more stress? Have you noticed any correlation there?
I think I want to point something out from the beginning of your
go for it.
Your thought and then get to that. I think there is a lot of comparison and emphasis on numbers within a lot of sports, with a goal to try to objectify something so we can improve in something. Like, hey, your free throw percentage is low. Let's work on that so it can improve, right? And I think, if you look across the board at sports, there's a number attached. And so there's emphasis on this number, and it creates this comparison that can be really unhealthy for us, because it creates almost this scarcity mindset of, oh, I have to perform at this level, or if I'm not, getting these numbers, then this other person's going to beat me out, and we both can't be here. Like, there's not enough room at the table for both of us, type thing. And I think that comparison can be, I think it's used as an attempt to motivate people, but it can be really detrimental, that we're comparing and basing so much off of numbers. Like, even in the basketball world, it's efficiency is a new thing on the stat record. Like, how efficient were you when you were in the game? And just a lot of comparison that can be really unhealthy. Brene Brown has a book called Atlas of the Heart. I don't know if you've read that. It's phenomenal. But she has a section on there of feelings we experience when we are comparing ourselves to others. And she uses a lot of sports analogies like swimming and how that impacts us emotionally and just the difficulties of that comparison. So I just wanted to point that out.
No, I love that. That's great.
Before I got to the next part. But I think there is, within the team sport realm, that kind of fills into that. When there's so much comparison, sometimes we lose the ability to work together as a team and be teammates and have strong relationships and chemistry. And we start pointing fingers and blaming others. And I think that could be the detriment to the team when we focus way too much on the comparison side and not like what we can do as a team. And that makes it difficult. We win together, we lose together. But then sometimes when you're trying, I've talked to clients like this, you're trying to get a scholarship. It's like, well, I'm going to take more shots so that way a college sees me.
Right.
And like, I'm going to do this. And so it creates a little bit of a mess on that side.
What stands out to me, I feel like if I could, reach into a wishing well and put into the world, like transition programs, like you're being recruited. Here's like a helpful learning education of like what to do, what's happening, how to manage stress. Okay, you've been recruited, you're in college. Here's a program of, here are the tools that you need. Here's like meditation, all of these types of skills. And then another part, which I want to chat with you about, is the transition out, right? You've just spent how much of your life earning a scholarship, being an athlete. And I can see myself personally had a little bit of a difficult time navigating this because I wasn't Hannah the athlete. I was Hannah the person who was really good at this. And, but I do know people when they've made it through college, they're done, and now they've got the real world, whether that be try to go play professionally, whether that's, okay, I don't quite have the skill set to be a normal person. What are your thoughts on the transition of like the transition of out of college into the normal day-to-day life?
Yeah, that was very difficult for me personally, the transition out. I was actually going to go play overseas. That was my plan. So I was like, I'm going to keep playing. That's what I thought. And then I had a terrible spinal cord injury that kept me from doing that. And so it was almost like an involuntary decision to stop the sport. And so I think I was wrestling in my mind. Like I knew from my changing my career, I knew I was going to go work with athletes and be a mental health therapist and follow that trajectory, but I just didn't think it was going to happen right away. I thought I had a little bit more time. And it was hard for me. And personally, it was hard because so much of my life was wrapped around sports. That's what I did all the time. My parents said I started picking up basketball when I was 2, and I just wanted a basketball with me all the time. So like from a young age, I was Emily the basketball player, like Emily the athlete.
Oh, okay.
I very much was focused on that. I didn't have a lot of separation, which I think is healthy, but I just didn't have that. And so there was this hard transition of no longer being the athlete. But then also even on another level, since I played a team sport, it was hard to no longer have the team and have that community. There's something about team sports and having those people and feeling that sense of belonging and being with people that get it, to then go out and in grad school not being around the team environment or my people and feeling kind of alone or isolated. I think that was a harder transition for me. And what I've seen, I work with a lot of athletes that were former athletes and trying to transition into this real world. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is finding a community and finding people to have that belonging and engage with and enjoying sports again and playing for fun and not for that competitive nature. Sometimes that's hard to release, and that takes a toll on us as well. So finding a hobby where you still use your body and you're still exercising because of the healthy rhythms that created for your life. Sometimes people want to never play that sport again. They're burnt out from it. I see that a lot. But okay, well, we need to transition into something where you're using your body and exercising because that's really healthy. What can we do? So that's big. Finding a community of people and just finding yourself.
Yeah.
I think those are kind of some big things.
I was one of those athletes that never played a sport again. I don't know, maybe one day, maybe when I have kids and they want to play basketball, maybe one day, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I do think there are things when you transition out. And even now, I graduated in 2017. Good God, what is that? 8 years? Oh my Lord. 8 years ago. And there are still characteristics that I struggle with from being an athlete. And one of the things I still am, like, I think there's, running, all of that. That's another thing. But one of the things that I struggle with is competitiveness to a fault. Like I will run myself into the ground to outwork my coworker. Not great, working on it. But another thing is the community you talked about is I don't think it's talked about enough about how hard it is to make friends when you're used to your teammates being your friends.
Yeah, yeah. And we're used to that our whole life. I mean, if we were college athletes, we were playing when we were young. So our whole life, our team has been our team, or our friends have been our teammates. Now, just as adults, there's a whole realm of resources to try to learn how to make friends when you're no longer in college, just because that's an issue in and of itself. But I do feel like that was really hard for me because I was so used to my teammates being my people. And there was almost this beauty, and it was just created for you because we were in the same place and we were doing the same thing. And then when you're an adult, you just really don't have that. So finding a community after is really helpful.
Yeah. I listened to, there was a podcast with Mel Robbins and Jay Shetty talking about finding friends. And you mentioned like proximity, and it was the 3 pillars of like proximity, timeline, and common interest. And your teams literally have all 3 of those for the most part. Like at least you have one thing interested in it, it's that you play the same sport. But that was a big thing for me is once I graduated, the survival mode got to go away, but I really struggled, and I still struggle trying to make friends because I just don't always know how to navigate. Like I could talk to a plant. I'm very social, but it's just like, I have no idea how to like, okay, I talk to you. We get coffee? Like, it's not there. And I think just because that never had to be a tool I needed, because it was just, oh, hey, there's Sally. She's your wing. Go play. Like it was just so created for me.
Yeah. And I mean, our coaches and our parents wanted us to hang out with our teammates. One, you had the same schedule,
right?
So that was easy. But 2, it built chemistry that helped you on the court. There was a lot that you did do. No, I think what you're describing is something I experienced, and what I hear from almost everyone I work with.
Yeah.
Is like, wait, how do we make friends? Like my team was my friend.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a hard thing.
So for someone who's listening that's going through either a recent transition out of college into the real world, or maybe they're a couple years in and there's noticing, myself even, I'll even ask, I'll vouch for myself, you're noticing things, habits that you've picked up throughout being an athlete in earlier years and in college. What are some helpful practices that young adults, athletes, ex-athletes, or retired athletes can use to kind of help in the mental health, anxiety, depression space?
Yeah, I would say what I would start with is a gratitude journal. I would really work on writing out a few things every day and focusing on gratitude. And that's one thing that won't take a lot of time. It can be easily implemented into your routine. Just journaling about things that you're grateful for. And beyond the, like, the sky is blue today, it's warm weather. Like, go beyond that. Like, who are you thankful for? How did you get to this place of thankfulness? Like, what's an event that led to this gratitude? There's so much research on gratitude and mental health and the impacts it has. Reducing unhealthy levels of cortisol, helping with changing thought patterns that are leading to different feelings or seasons of depression, reducing the anxiety and the focus on all these different things that have gone wrong or may go wrong. So that's just like a basic, you could do that right away. Next, I would say tell someone and talk to someone about it. People want to help you, and people care about you and what's going to make you a better version of yourself. And it's really loving to share how you're doing with someone and letting them help you. That brings other people a lot of joy. So gratitude journal, talk to someone, share what's going on, practice some vulnerability with that. I would say I don't want to give too many lists, but set some healthy boundaries on your day. Like set some boundaries on how much you're on social media, how much
Mm,
TV you're watching. Set some boundaries on um, things that aren't helping you be the best version of yourself. Like limit some more of those, and start spending some more time with hobbies that help you feel better, like exercise or joining some community where you're around people, being in nature. Just like learn to find what you like to do and put yourself out there and go do that.
those are great. It's so
Mm-hmm.
crazy to think about because I know
Mm-hmm.
it's just so different for every person, but there is a pivotal moment where you're no longer Emily the basketball player or Hannah the
Mm-hmm.
basketball player. And so having to find Hannah the person, Emily the person is
Mm-hmm.
so daunting in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is. I think for me, there wasn't a lot of time of self reflection when I was younger
Hmm.
of, you know, who I really am. I was so focused on the sport and learning, and playing and doing that and taking some time to self reflect and be like, what, who am I? What do I like? What am I passionate about? What brings me life and joy that's different than when I was younger? I think that makes a big difference. And learning that we are not what we do and what we produce.
Preach.
I mean, I remember that was pivotal. Like, wait, I am not loved because I scored this many points, or I'm not loved because I saw this many clients this month. Like, no, I'm just loved because I'm Emily. It's not because of anything I do. I don't need to earn it. I think that was huge for me,
Yeah.
for sure.
There is such a validation. And it's something I've been doing something every morning where I do have a gratitude journal and morning pages.
Hmm.
And again, sharing this for
Hmm.
someone listening who would like to benefit, whichever,
Yeah.
open book. The validation of self in sports, in school, in salary, in Hannah, how did I do? And I noticed by jumping from basketball to diving into my career to now getting into running, it's changed and I'm having to pull the reins back on my running a bit because it just got to the point of like, how many races could I do in a year? How many, like,
Yeah.
it got to be where like, nope, we're now feeding the validation spin. And it took the beginning of this year for me to like, holy shit, first off, this is not sustainable, number one.
Yeah.
But I think when you've just been in a world where your validation comes from your outcome, not your internal notice of self
Yes.
worth, it takes a hot second to be like, huh, whoop.
Yeah. And setting goals helped us be successful, right? Like setting goals, it was about reaching the goal. It wasn't about the process. And now, that we're older and we have more language for it
Mm-hmm.
and our brains are fully developed and we can actually like think through things and reflect at a different level at this age. We can see like we can see the intention behind it. Why am I doing this? And is this what's best for me and what I want to be doing? And we can make changes
Mm-hmm.
to that. There's more about the process and the intention than it is about the attention from reaching the goal. I think that
Ooh,
is pivotal at this point.
huge. So is that just to take a step back? Because I do want to talk a brief moment about your profession and how, you talked about the 14 to 24 years of navigating college sports. Is that when you work with coaches and athletes, are you kind of helping them recognize the worth disassociated from the sport? Like, what are you doing to get on the front end, if there is a front end to
Yeah,
mental health in athletes?
that's a great question. I think what I've seen is helping parents and helping coaches because they really are the thermostat in the room and they really are impacting how these younger players are doing. So helping the coaches and the parents be self-regulated, understand how to manage their emotions, have more self-awareness about what they're putting out and on these kids, and helping them be healthier, has made a lot of change in teams, and players. Because sometimes, I mean, I really believe that people want the best for other people. I do believe that we have good intentions as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think parents are doing the best they can with the knowledge they have. And I believe that most coaches are doing the best they can with the knowledge they have. And I think inside of each coach and parent, there's this little kid, and that has not been like fully developed and cared for and loved. And so they're just unregulated, and it's creating this pattern throughout. And so a lot of it is consulting with coaches and parents, like, hey, this is happening. What do I do? And it's like, okay, well, let's take care of ourselves. Let's figure out, how to get calm ourselves and manage our own anxiety. And the answer is probably going to be within you, because you know your kids and you know your team. And then it's also just a lot of education on, hey, if you see this may be what's going on. Maybe the player needs a little bit more of this. Can you set up a meeting with this player and talk to them about this? And then when I work with whole teams, a lot of it is, hey, caring for yourself and taking care of certain aspects of yourself are going to help you be a better athlete. So here's how you set boundaries. Here's the dimensions of health that we can focus on so you live in more balance. Here's some breathing techniques to help you take care of yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed. So it's a lot of educational consulting, kind of in a sense, with the whole team and giving them tools to utilize. But I do think, like you talked about, if you could go back and set these like transition periods of like, here you're going to this phase now, here's how you do it. I think a lot of it comes from the leaders in the room. And helping the leaders in the room is what's actually helping the players.
Yeah.
Especially at those ages, because we're so young from age 14 to 24. Like, we're looking for someone farther along in the process than us to help us. And we're looking up to them, and we're letting them set the tone and like that temperature in the room.
When you say setting boundaries, what do you mean by when you talk to athletes about setting boundaries? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question that I will try to answer quickly. So I usually teach it as there's 4 different kind of categories when you go through boundaries. So time boundaries, how much time are you spending doing things? Let's limit that.
Okay.
So for example, a big issue in the athletic community is lack of sleep. That is prominent, partly due to the schedules that we have as athletes and coaches of when we have our workouts, when we have to do our homework, when we have class. Like, it's difficult to get sleep. So we go through different time boundaries of, hey, an hour before you go to sleep, we need to stop using technology. Like, no phone, no TV. Like, read a book, relax, do something calming, get ready for bed. Like 2 hours before you are going to sleep, let's like not do any work, right? Let's try to set our brain, and sometimes that can't happen. I get that, but let's set some more boundaries around that, or let's set time boundaries on how long we're on social media. That's another big one. And then the other category is emotional boundaries. Recognizing if certain topics are really hard to discuss, set a boundary like, hey, I just can't talk about this right now, and setting a boundary on that. Can we talk about it at a different time, or can you talk about it with someone else? That's like an emotional boundary, or like who you feel comfortable talking to about certain things. And then I go to material boundaries, and that's like how much you let people like have or borrow of your stuff. Um, and that can be like a wide range of things, like set boundaries of how much money you give to people, set boundaries of just like if we're talking about sleep, set boundaries of how long people are allowed to hang out in your apartment
Mm.
and like when they would need to leave or if they're allowed to stay with you or different things like that. And then physical boundary is just, kind of expressing personal space. Or I have some friends that really don't like hugs. So they let me know, like, I don't like hugs. Okay, then we won't hug.
Right.
Like, that's okay. But like just being able to express what you need and what helps you care for yourself is kind of the area I mean with the boundaries.
Okay. Thank you.
Setting setting time to rest is another like big boundary. Like set some time to like go on a walk and not do anything. That's another big boundary.
That's a great one too. All right, last question and then we'll go into rapid fire questions. So, looking back now, if you could share one tidbit of knowledge with your college self, what would it be?
It would be to focus more on the relationships that I had and less about what I was producing on the court.
Oh,
I think I think in my earlier college years, I focused a lot on my performance and very competitive and trying to outwork and out hustle and just be this different level of player. And I missed out on some of the relationships that give you more life because those last after the sport ends. Thankfully, I, you know, I had some different things happen and I started to focus more on the relationships. And actually, I probably played better when I was focused more on the relationships than when I was on my own island trying to produce. But yeah, focusing on the relationships and that's actually all of that mindset shift is going to help you more than trying to do all this on your own.
yeah. I would echo that as well. That'd be mine too.
Good.
It's a good one. Okay. Rapid fire questions. You ready?
Ready.
Okay. Favorite self-help book?
Try Softer by Andy Colbert. Have you heard of her?
I have not.
She's a West Coast girl. You should look her up.
Okay. What was the book name?
Try Softer.
Try Softer.
She played college basketball as well,
Okay.
and she is a mental health therapist, so I relate very deeply. And she also has a book called Strong Like Water. That's her like next book, but Try Softer was the first one.
Okay. Heck yeah, I'll read that.
Yeah.
Anyone who's done basketball in college, I mean, any sports, you always have there's a bond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scariest thing you've ever done?
Moving to North Carolina by myself after college was, yeah, I didn't know anyone in the entire state. I moved down here by myself, found some roommates online for a graduate program, and it worked out.
Yeah.
But it was pretty terrifying to leave, everything and come here to go to graduate school. And I stayed. My husband and I decided to stay in North Carolina. We haven't gone back up north where we're from. So it worked out. It worked out, but it was pretty scary. I was dating my now husband and he got into grad school somewhere else. And then, thankfully God gave us jobs in the same area and we are now married and in North Carolina together. But moving down here was pretty scary.
That's scary. Leap of faith for sure. Favorite place that you've traveled to?
Jamaica.
Ooh.
It's my first all-inclusive resort for our honeymoon. It was fantastic.
There's something that's different about it all-inclusive because it's just so nice. You're hungry, you eat. If there's it's already prepaid. It's just so hands off.
It really is. It was great.
Okay. Are you a wait for the movie theater? Oh, wait, hold on. Are you a movie theater watcher? Like go to a movie theater to watch a movie? Or will you wait till it comes out via streaming?
Movie theater. And I like to get there for the previews as well.
Oh, you want the
full experience. I want the whole experience. I get a thing of popcorn, I mean, I love it. I'll go by myself. I don't even need people to go with me. I love the movie theater.
I used to, and then I think COVID happened and I just never got back into it. Like I'll go,
Yeah. Hmm.
but yeah, I love that question because you don't really think about it until someone
Yeah.
talks about like,
That's a
no,
good one.
I like the experience.
Yeah.
Okay, what is one thing you want listeners to know about you?
I am working on a book that talks about pretty much everything that we just discussed. It's about redeeming the qualities and principles that we learned as athletes into life after athletics, with like a Christian perspective. Because I think a lot of what we learned has unfortunately been utilized in a negative way later in life, like that competitiveness or comparison or lack of vulnerability, and these different things that were meant to be helpful from coaches and parents when we were learning the sport, I think can still be helpful and redeemed in a healthier way. And so it's a book I'm working on, and fun fact that maybe y'all will be able to read one day.
I love that. That's going to be
Mm-hmm.
amazing because that right there, that was one of the questions I asked you. That is so, there's an untouched treasure chest of how we can use the tools we just spent how many years perfecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I really believe they can be redeemed and utilized in a healthy way. I
Yeah.
believe that for sure.
Oh my, I will read
So,
that 100%.
well,
Keep
thank
me
you.
posted.
Appreciate that.
Of
I will.
course. Okay, last question. And I end every episode with this question. What are 3 things that you're grateful for?
I'm grateful for the community that I have in my life. That, like I said, that was difficult to create and have after being an athlete and moving to a whole new state. But I have a really good group of people that really love me and care about me, and that is invaluable to me for sure. I am grateful for all of the hardships and struggles that I've experienced. I think they have made me into a better version of myself and refined me and healed me in a way that I wouldn't have been able to experience had I not gone through something hard. I think there's a lot of growth in the difficulty. So I'm very grateful for all of those things and how it's led me to where I am. And I'm really grateful for my husband. I love my husband so much. We've been together we haven't been married this long, but we've been together for 12 years. And so he has been there by my side through all of these different things that have happened in 12 years of life. We started dating when we were in college, so he was there when I was the athlete and through the transition of not being an athlete and now a therapist and where I'm at now. And we have a son that we're raising together, and I'm just so grateful for my husband. And it's rare that you are with someone that sees so many different life changes. And you grow together in a better and healthier way through all of them. So I'm just really grateful for him.
Oh, I loved that, Emily. That was so sweet. That was
Thanks.
so sweet. And so just to, I want to be mindful of your time. How can listeners contact you or Elevate for more information?
Yeah. My email is Emily at liveelevated.co, and you'll put that in the
I definitely will.
notes.
Yeah.
And our Instagram's on there and our website. That would be the best place to go
Okay.
to contact and get in touch and hopefully help you become a better version of yourself and deal with whatever you're walking through. I'm happy to help.
That's the podcast. You completely crushed that. That was amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate you asking me to be on it. I really enjoyed this. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Of course. Here, let me hit stop
Thank you.
here.